The fluorescent lights hummed overhead in the pediatric wing of St. Francis Medical Center as Maria Santos clutched her rosary beads, her knuckles white against the worn wooden cross. Through the reinforced glass window, she watched her 8-year-old daughter Elena lying motionless in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines that beeped and whirred with mechanical precision. 3 days ago, Elena had been laughing at breakfast, braiding friendship bracelets, chattering about her upcoming school play. Now, according to the team of specialists, her body was shutting down for reasons no medical textbook could explain. Dr. Patterson emerged from Elena's room, his usually confident demeanor replaced by something Maria had never seen in 15 years of bringing her children for routine checkups. Complete bewilderment. He pulled off his stethoscope and shook his head slowly. "Mrs. Santos, I've consulted with neurologists, infectious disease specialists, even brought in experts from Boston Children's Hospital," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Elena's blood work shows no signs of infection, no autoimmune markers, no genetic abnormalities. Her brain scans are normal. Every test we've run comes back negative, yet her vital signs continue to deteriorate." The words hit Maria like physical blows. She pressed her hand against the cool wall of the corridor, feeling the world tilt sideways. Behind her, the families waited in plastic chairs, some clutching teddy bears, others staring at their phones with hollow eyes. The familiar smell of disinfectant mixed with the faint scent of flowers from the chapel down the hall, where she had spent countless hours on her knees these past 3 days. Before we go deeper into this mystery, take a moment to subscribe to Virgin Mary Mysteries. Stories like this are too powerful to experience alone. If you're watching from anywhere in the world tonight, please let us know in the comments where you're joining us from and share a simple prayer or word of hope. Your faith might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. "There has to be something," Maria whispered, her voice cracking. "Some test you haven't done, some specialist you haven't called." But even as she spoke, she could see in Dr. Patterson's eyes what he couldn't bring himself to say aloud. Modern medicine, with all its technology and expertise, had reached the limits of its understanding. Her daughter was dying, and no one could explain why. Down the corridor, a priest walked quietly toward the family chapel, his black cassock moving like a gentle shadow. The setting sun cast long rectangles of golden light through the windows, and somewhere in the distance, church bells chimed the evening hour. Maria closed her eyes and felt the smooth beads of her rosary slip between her trembling fingers. What force could be powerful enough to confound every medical expert, every test, every known diagnosis? And what would it take to fight back against the impossible? The Santos family had lived in the same modest 2-story house on Maple Street for 3 generations, where the morning light always fell perfectly across the wooden mantelpiece in the living room. There, nestled between family photographs and Elena's school awards, stood a delicate statue of Our Lady of Lourdes, carved from pale blue stone and no taller than a coffee cup. The statue had belonged to Maria's grandmother, who had carried it in her suitcase when she emigrated from Portugal in 1952, whispering prayers to the Blessed Mother during the long ocean crossing. Every evening before dinner, the family gathered before the statue for evening prayer. Elena and her older brother Miguel would kneel on the worn carpet, their small hands folded, while Maria and her husband Carlos led them through the rosary. Elena had always been drawn to the statue in a way that surprised even Maria. The little girl would sometimes place wildflowers at its base or quietly tell the Virgin Mary about her day, as if sharing secrets with a beloved friend. "Mama," Elena would whisper, "she looks so kind. I think she really listens." The illness had struck with terrifying suddenness. Elena had complained of feeling tired after school on a Tuesday, nothing unusual for an active 8-year-old. By Wednesday morning, she couldn't keep food down, and by Thursday, her fever spiked so high that Maria rushed her to the emergency room. What began as what seemed like a common childhood illness quickly spiraled into something that defied every medical explanation. In those first desperate hours at the hospital, while doctors ran test after test, Maria found herself thinking constantly of the Virgin Mary statue waiting at home. She could picture Elena's small hands arranged so carefully around its base just days before, the child's innocent voice asking the Blessed Mother to watch over their family. The memory felt both comforting and haunting. Had Elena somehow sensed that protection would soon be needed? Dr. Patterson had shown them Elena's medical timeline on his computer screen, pointing to normal pediatric checkups just weeks before, clean blood work, perfect vision, and hearing tests. She was the picture of health, he had said, scrolling through months of routine visits. There's no family history of genetic disorders, no environmental exposure we can identify, no recent travel or unusual activities. The data painted the portrait of a perfectly healthy child who had simply inexplicably begun to die. Carlos had driven home that first night to gather Elena's favorite blanket and stuffed animal, and he returned with something else clutched in his hands, the small statue of Our Lady of Lourdes. "She asked for this specifically," he whispered to Maria, his voice thick with emotion. "She said she needed her special friend with her." They had placed the statue on Elena's bedside table, where it caught the light from the window and seemed to watch over their daughter's restless sleep. Now, as Maria sat in the uncomfortable hospital chair, she studied the statue's serene expression and wondered about the countless other mothers who had prayed before it over the decades, carrying their fears and hopes to the feet of the Mother of God. How could a perfectly healthy child, surrounded by love and daily prayer, suddenly find herself at death's door with no medical explanation? And what ancient hope might still remain when modern medicine had no answers to offer? Friday night arrived with heavy stillness pressing against the hospital windows. Elena's condition had worsened throughout the day, temperature climbing despite every medical intervention, breathing becoming labored, monitors showing patterns that made experienced nurses exchange worried glances. Dr. Patterson had quietly pulled Maria and Carlos aside with words careful but unmistakable. They needed to prepare for the possibility that Elena might not see Saturday morning. Maria found herself alone with her daughter as the evening shift change brought temporary quiet to the pediatric ward. Elena lay unconscious, her small chest rising and falling with mechanical assistance, the Virgin Mary statue positioned where sunlight caught its smooth surface. Maria reached for the rosary beads in her pocket and began the familiar prayers with trembling lips. As she reached the third Hail Mary, something shifted in the room's atmosphere. Maria later told friends that the air itself seemed thicker, more present, carrying the faint scent of roses despite the clinical smell of disinfectant. Her voice grew stronger as she continued the prayers, speaking directly to the statue as Elena had done at home. "Holy Mother," she whispered above the humming machines, "if you can hear me, if you're really listening like Elena believes you are, please don't take my baby. Show the doctors what they can't see." The monitor beside Elena's bed had been showing an irregular heartbeat for hours, jagged lines painting a picture of a young system under siege. But as Maria reached the glorious mysteries, something extraordinary began to happen. The chaotic spikes and valleys on the heart monitor gradually smoothed into steady, rhythmic patterns. Elena's labored breathing eased, becoming deeper and natural. Her fever, which had resisted every medication for 3 days, began to drop for the first time since admission. If this story is pulling you in, subscribe now and tell me in the comments what you believe is really happening. Your insight might reveal something we haven't seen yet. Nurse Jennifer Walsh, a 20-year veteran of pediatric care, entered for hourly vitals and stopped abruptly. She stared at the monitors, then at Elena, then back at displays showing numbers that shouldn't have been possible given the child's condition just an hour before. "Mrs. Santos," she said slowly, "I need to call Dr. Patterson immediately." Within minutes, Dr. Patterson arrived with two other physicians, all studying the monitoring equipment with expressions ranging from puzzlement to disbelief. They checked machines for malfunction, ran additional tests, examined Elena with renewed intensity. Every measurement confirmed what the monitors displayed. Elena's vital signs had stabilized completely, returning to normal ranges that had seemed impossible hours before. The medical team gathered outside Elena's room in heated discussion about medication interactions and statistical probabilities. But Maria remained beside her daughter, the rosary still warm in her hands, watching the steady rise and fall of Elena's chest. Had the Virgin Mary truly intervened at the moment of greatest desperation, or was this simply an unexplained medical phenomenon that coincided with a mother's desperate prayers? Saturday morning brought the first hint of hope that Maria had felt in days. Elena's vital signs remained stable throughout the night, though the medical team continued to express bewilderment at the sudden improvement. Dr. Patterson had ordered additional blood work and scheduled consultations with specialists who had not yet examined Elena's case. But Maria could see in his eyes that he was grasping for explanations that seemed to elude conventional medical understanding. That afternoon, exhausted from days of keeping vigil, Maria finally allowed herself to rest in the family waiting area. She curled up in the uncomfortable reclining chair beside the window, clutching her rosary beads, and fell into the deepest sleep she had experienced since Eleanor's admission. What happened next, according to Maria's later testimony to her parish priest, would change the entire course of Eleanor's treatment. In her dream, Maria found herself standing in a hospital corridor she didn't recognize, filled with warm, golden light that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. The familiar scent of roses surrounded her, and she heard the soft sound of footsteps approaching. When she turned, she saw a woman dressed in flowing blue and white robes, her face radiant with compassion and infinite gentleness. The woman didn't speak, but gestured toward a doorway at the end of the corridor, pointing with graceful fingers toward what appeared to be a medical office. The woman's expression conveyed urgency mixed with reassurance, as if saying, "Go there, trust what you will find." Maria tried to ask questions, but found she couldn't speak in the dream. Instead, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace and direction, as if every doubt and fear was being gently lifted from her shoulders. The woman smiled, an expression of such maternal love that Maria felt her heart might burst, and then began to fade as the golden light grew brighter and brighter. Maria woke with a start, her heart pounding, the dream so vivid that she could still smell roses in the sterile hospital air. She looked around the waiting area, disoriented, trying to reconcile the ethereal beauty of what she had experienced with the harsh fluorescent lighting and institutional furniture surrounding her. But something compelled her to act on what she had seen, despite how impossible it seemed. She approached the information desk and described the corridor from her dream, the specific architectural details, the location of the office, even the color of the carpet. The volunteer's eyes widened with recognition. "That sounds like the East Wing," she said slowly. "There's a pediatric neurology specialist there, Dr. Sarah Chen, but she's usually only here on Saturdays for research. Most people don't even know about her Saturday hours." Maria's hands trembled as she realized that Dr. Chen had never been consulted about Elena's case, despite being one of the leading experts in pediatric neurological disorders on the entire East Coast. The oversight seemed impossible, given the thoroughness of Elena's medical team, yet somehow this critical specialist had been missed in all the consultations and referrals. Could the Virgin Mary have guided Maria's subconscious toward a medical solution that existed in the natural world? Or was this simply an extraordinary coincidence that happened to align with a desperate mother's vivid dreams? Dr. Sarah Chen proved to be everything the hospital volunteer had described, a brilliant pediatric neurologist whose reputation for solving complex cases had drawn families from across the country. When she examined Eleanor on Saturday afternoon, Her approach differed markedly from the other specialists. She spent nearly an hour reviewing not just the test results, but Elena's behavioral patterns, family history, and even seemingly unrelated details about the child's daily routine before her illness. There's a rare autoimmune condition that affects the nervous system, Dr. Chen explained to Maria and Carlos, her voice measured and careful. It's called pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric syndrome, and it can present with symptoms that mimic everything Elena has experienced. The condition is so uncommon that it's often missed in standard diagnostic protocols. She paused, studying Elena's charts with intense focus. There's an experimental treatment protocol being developed at Johns Hopkins, but it's still in clinical trials. Maria felt a familiar stirring in her chest, the same sensation she had experienced during her dream. "What kind of treatment?" she asked, though something deep in her intuition suggested she might already know the answer. Dr. Chen described a combination of immunotherapy and targeted nutritional support, a protocol that sounded both cutting-edge and strangely familiar. That evening, Carlos drove home to collect fresh clothes and Elena's favorite books, hoping that his daughter might soon be alert enough to want familiar comforts around her. When he returned to the hospital, he carried something unexpected, an old prayer book that had fallen from behind the Virgin Mary statue when he accidentally bumped the mantelpiece. The book, bound in cracked leather and written in Portuguese, had belonged to Maria's grandmother and had been forgotten for years behind the statue. As Maria carefully opened the brittle pages, her breath caught in her throat. There, in her grandmother's careful handwriting, was a detailed account of a miraculous healing remedy that had been used in Portugal in the 1940s for children with mysterious illnesses that affected the mind and body together. The description matched Dr. Chen's experimental treatment almost exactly. The same combination of immune system support and specific nutritional elements, written in language that predated modern medical terminology by decades. Word of Dr. Chen's consultation and the unusual prayer book discovery spread quietly through the pediatric ward. Other families, some who had been struggling with their own medical mysteries, began asking questions about Elena's case. Maria noticed mothers gathering in small groups near the family chapel, whispering about unexplained improvements in their children's conditions that had occurred over the weekend, each story involving moments of desperate prayer and surprising medical developments. Nurse Jennifer Walsh confided to Maria that she had seen more positive changes in patient outcomes over the past 3 days than in her previous month of shifts. "It's like something has shifted in this whole wing," she said quietly, glancing toward Elena's room where the Virgin Mary statue continued its silent vigil. "Families are praying together more, and the doctors are finding solutions they had missed before." As Maria sat beside Elena's bed that night, watching her daughter's peaceful sleep and holding both her rosary and her grandmother's prayer book, she wondered about the invisible connections that might be weaving through the corridors around them. How many other miracles were quietly unfolding around them, and what divine pattern might be emerging that extended far beyond one family's desperate prayers. Sunday morning brought the beginning of Elena's experimental treatment under Dr. Chen's careful supervision. The protocol was complex and demanding, a series of intravenous infusions combined with specialized nutritional support that would span several days. Maria and Carlos took turns staying beside Elena's bed, maintaining a constant vigil as their daughter's small body worked to fight the mysterious condition that had nearly claimed her life. The first day of treatment proved challenging. Elena, now semi-conscious but still weak, experienced significant discomfort as the medications coursed through her system. Her parents watched helplessly as she writhed restlessly, small whimpers escaping her lips during the most intensive phases of the infusion process. Maria found herself praying almost constantly, the rosary beads worn smooth from her constant handling, while Carlos read aloud from Elena's favorite children's books in hopes that familiar stories might provide comfort. On the second day of treatment, something remarkable began to happen. During one of the most difficult infusion sessions, as Eleanor's face contorted with pain, she suddenly grew calm and still. Her breathing became peaceful, and a gentle smile crossed her features. When the session ended and she was more alert, Elena looked at her parents with clear, focused eyes for the first time in over a week. "Mama," she whispered, her voice barely audible but stronger than it had been since her admission. "The beautiful lady in blue was here again. She held my hand during the medicine time and sang the most wonderful lullabies. Her voice sounded like angels singing in church, but softer, like when you sing to me at bedtime." Maria exchanged glances with Carlos, both of them remembering Elena's childhood fascination with the Virgin Mary statue at home. "What did she look like, sweetheart?" Maria asked gently, stroking her daughter's hair. "She had the kindest eyes I've ever seen, and she wore a blue dress with white trim, just like our statue at home. But she was real, Mama, not made of stone. She told me not to be afraid of the medicine, because it was making me better, so I could go home and tell people about God's love." Eleanor's voice grew stronger as she spoke, and her eyes sparkled with a vitality that had been absent for days. The change in Elena seemed to catalyze something profound within the Santos family itself. Carlos, who had been struggling with doubts about his faith since Eleanor's illness began, found himself joining Maria for evening prayers with renewed conviction. Miguel, Eleanor's older brother, who had been staying with relatives, returned to the hospital and was amazed to find his sister sitting up and asking about her schoolwork. "I was so scared I was going to lose my little sister," Miguel confided to Maria, tears streaming down his 13-year-old face. "But seeing her now, hearing about the lady who visited her, I feel like God really does listen to our prayers." The family's unity, which had been strained by fear and exhaustion, began to heal as they witnessed Elena's remarkable progress. Dr. Chen, monitoring Elena's response to the treatment, expressed cautious optimism about her recovery, though she admitted that the speed of improvement exceeded her most hopeful projections. But as Eleanor grew stronger and the family's spirits lifted, none of them suspected that their greatest test of faith still lay ahead, and that everything they thought they understood about Elena's healing was about to be challenged in ways they never could have imagined. Tuesday evening brought devastating news that shattered the fragile hope building around Elena's recovery. Dr. Chen entered the family conference room with an expression Maria recognized immediately, the same look of professional defeat that had marked Dr. Patterson's face days earlier. The experimental treatment, which had shown such promising initial results, had suddenly stopped working. Elena's condition was not just plateauing, it was rapidly deteriorating again. "The blood work from this afternoon shows Elena's immune system is rejecting the protocol," Dr. Chen explained, her voice heavy with disappointment. "Her white blood cell count has dropped to dangerous levels, and her neurological responses are regressing to where they were before treatment began. We've seen this type of sudden reversal in clinical trials, but it's always devastating when it happens." Maria felt the familiar sensation of the world tilting beneath her feet. After days of watching Elena grow stronger, hearing her daughter's stories about the beautiful lady in blue, witnessing the family's renewed unity and faith, this setback felt like cruel betrayal. Carlos sat beside her in stunned silence, his hands clenched so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. "What are our options now?" Carlos asked, though his voice suggested he already feared the answer. Dr. Chen's pause lasted just a moment too long, conveying everything they needed to know about the severity of their situation. "We can try adjusting medication dosages, but honestly, when this type of rejection occurs, the window for successful intervention becomes very narrow," she admitted. "I want to be completely transparent with you both. We may need to discuss comfort care measures if Elena doesn't respond to our modifications within the next 24 to 48 hours. The words hit Maria like physical blows. Comfort care. The euphemistic language couldn't disguise what Dr. Chen was really saying. They needed to prepare themselves to let their daughter die peacefully. After everything they had been through, all the signs they had interpreted as divine intervention, all of Elena's stories about heavenly visitations, it seemed that medical science and celestial hope were both proving insufficient against whatever was destroying their child's body. That night, Maria and Carlos made their way to the hospital chapel for what felt like the most important prayer of their lives. Other families were there too, some of the same mothers and fathers who had been gathering throughout the week, drawn together by their shared experience of medical mysteries and desperate hope. Together, they knelt before the simple wooden crucifix and the small statue of the Virgin Mary that stood in the corner. "Holy Mother," Maria whispered, her voice breaking as tears streamed down her face. "We have trusted you completely. We have believed in every sign, followed every guidance you seemed to provide, held fast to every moment of hope you appeared to offer. If you are truly listening, if you truly care about our Elena, please don't abandon us now. Show us that our faith has not been misplaced." The chapel filled with quiet, whispered prayers from other families, their voices joining together in a chorus of desperate hope that rose toward the vaulted ceiling. Had their faith been nothing more than wishful thinking in the face of overwhelming medical reality, or was the greatest miracle yet to come in their darkest hour? Wednesday morning arrived with a silence that felt different from the oppressive quiet of the previous week. Maria woke in the hospital chair beside Eleanor's bed, her rosary beads still tangled in her fingers. What she saw when she looked at her daughter defied everything the medical team had predicted the evening before. Elena was sitting up in bed, her eyes bright and alert, humming softly, a hymn they sang together at Sunday Mass. When she noticed her mother watching, Elena smiled with radiant joy. "Good morning, Mama," she said, her voice clear and strong. "The beautiful lady came to see me again last night. She said it was time for me to go home and tell everyone about how much God loves them, especially when they're scared and sad. She said my job is to help people remember that they're never really alone, even in hospitals." Dr. Chen arrived within the hour, accompanied by specialists who examined Elena with expressions of complete bewilderment. The blood work drawn that morning showed normal white blood cell counts, healthy neurological markers, and immune system functions that appeared to have not only recovered but strengthened beyond baseline measurements. According to every medical indicator available, Elena Santos was completely healthy. "In 30 years of practicing medicine, I have never seen anything like this," Dr. Chen admitted to Maria and Carlos privately. "Elena's recovery contradicts everything we understand about her condition. Officially, I have to document this as unexplained spontaneous remission, but I'm not sure medical terminology adequately describes what has happened here." Elena was discharged 3 days later, carrying the Virgin Mary statue that had maintained its vigil throughout her hospitalization. Word of her recovery spread quietly through St. Anthony Parish, through gentle whispers between families who had witnessed similar moments of unexpected hope. The statue was returned to its place on the mantelpiece at home, where it continued to attract visitors seeking their own moments of grace. Maria began receiving phone calls from mothers across the city who had heard about Elena's experience. Each conversation revealed stories of unexplained medical improvements, timely discoveries of overlooked treatments, and children who spoke of comforting presences during their darkest hours. A pattern seemed to be emerging, quiet miracles occurring in families who maintained faith during impossible circumstances. 6 months later, Elena returned to school with no lingering effects from her illness. She often spoke to her classmates about the importance of praying for people in hospitals, displaying unusual maturity and compassion for others who were suffering. The Virgin Mary statue continued to hold its place of honor in the Santos home, where evening prayers had become even more central to family life. If this story moved you, subscribe to Virgin Mary Mysteries so you never miss the next chapter in these extraordinary mysteries. Please share in the comments your own prayer of hope. Type "Blessed Protection" if this story touched your heart, and join our community of believers who support each other through faith. How many other families are experiencing similar quiet miracles at this very moment? And what invisible network of divine protection might be surrounding those who turn to the Virgin Mary in their deepest moments of need?